This is TWiT.
This is a rumor that came up this week thanks to our buddy, The Walking Cat, also known as H0X0D on Twitter. He found a Chinese website that had supposedly captured something that Microsoft in China displayed very briefly that said, this is Microsoft Surface Mobile, which is a horrible name, by the way, and hopefully just not real at all. But he and some others were translating the text of one of the leakers who found this, and it mentioned Continuum, it mentioned Snapdragon as being the processor. It mentioned two things that look like new code names, Surface Peking and Surface Slavonia. And it also mentioned something called Onto Table, which people are interpreting to be projecting from a phone onto a table instead of onto a large screen monitor or a TV.
Right.
So the question is any of this real? And even the most enthusiastic sites are kind of doubting it. They're saying, I don't know if this is real. It looks kind of fake, looks made up, looks photoshopped. There isn't a picture of the device, but even the wording and the logo don't really match up correctly. So they're like, is it real? I don't know. I've been trying to track down, is it real? Is any part of this real? And my answer is, so far, I can't find anybody who knows or who thinks it is real.
This seems to have come straight out of the conversation that you and I had, some months ago on the podcast. And it was you who said, we keep thinking of this thing as Surface Phone, but you felt that, and I don't remember if this was an opinion or based on some information you had from sources, but that this thing would be a different kind of mobile device. And I think literally you coined the term Surface Mobile as maybe a more accurate way to describe it. So Mary Jo's email address is mjf at...
Oh, man. I think whatever Microsoft does do in mobile next is going to be probably a device that can be more than one thing. Like we keep hearing, maybe it's a phone. Well, maybe it's a tablet, right, that has telephony capabilities. But what's interesting about this rumor from this week is it never mentions telephony at all. And it makes it look more like it's a phone that can transform into a tablet and then use Continuum to transform into another kind of experience. So I don't know. When I saw the rumor, the first thing I did was go back and look at one of those envisioning videos that Microsoft used to do. I think the last one they ever did was 2015, where they show their glimpse of the future. And there are a whole bunch of pictures in there of people holding something that looks like a phone and kind of making a gesture like they're sending it to something, and then it shows up on the wall or it shows up on a mirror.
Yes. Is this the one where it looks like a really flat thing? Like the phone is like almost like just the screen?
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know if the rumor is kind of reflecting an evolved version of that idea.
By the way, that's a very visual version of this notion of ambient computing, right? That if you think about a home that has a Google Home in it, in each room or something, and you could walk around the house and talk to it, and you could extend that out into the world. But of course, you often need something to look at, a screen of some kind. And so today, Google's talking about, well, we're going to use your HD TV. If you have a Chromecast, we can use your phone because everyone has one of those. But this, I mean, I'm surrounded like literally by blank walls in here. I mean, it's not hard to imagine casting a screen, a display or whatever you want to, projecting a display up onto this empty surface.
Well, that's what the name Surface almost always implied, that even from the beginning when it was something, you imagined larger, just that every surface could be a screen, essentially.
Yeah.
So in other words, if Microsoft Surface is successful, the Microsoft Surface devices will go away.
Every surface becomes a surface. That could be their new tagline.
Yeah. What about, some people in the chat room are saying, what about a Surface Mini? Is that something that you've heard rumors about? No.
And by the way, go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say that one kind of periodically resurfaces the whole idea that remember when Microsoft was going to build a Surface Mini,
right.
And then they built a bunch of them and then put them down. I'm saying it's like an animal. They put them down.
Yeah,
actually, I was thinking they buried them in a big hole.
No, it's chasing rabbits on a farm. It's fine. I think that's a little short-sighted to worry about that kind of thing at this point, right? Like the very notion of Microsoft coming out with a phone or a mini tablet and putting a Surface logo on it right now is way out of date. I think the thing that's most interesting about what Microsoft is doing here, and we don't know much, is that they're clearly thinking along the lines of something new. Like this is something we've not yet seen, right? And there's some value to that, right? Without knowing what it is. I mean, there's no value to making a phone now. That makes no sense for Microsoft. Right. There's absolutely no value in making a little Surface tablet. There's no value to that. But trying to advance the state of the art, trying to make this little Envision video come to life in a way that actually makes sense in 2017, 2018, whatever. I mean, that makes sense at least.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I hear what you're saying, that it's aspirational and future forward thinking. But what about I mean, the Surface Studio? What value did that have? I mean, it was a giant tablet that they were really pitching at artists, and then couldn't you also pitch a smaller, something slightly bigger than this for artists and people who want to be productive, like the, people who think of it as like a Moleskine Surface.
Yeah, actually, like so you just said the key word. I was gonna kind of almost not jump all over that, but kind of Microsoft's thing. The one bit of the market that makes tons of sense for them is that productivity thing. When they use the term creators with the Creators Update or the Fall Creators Update, what they're really describing there, it's another way of saying people who are engaged in productivity tasks. They're creating something, they're making something, they're whatever it is. And so the Surface Studio is the embodiment of that kind of a task for certain types of creators. In this case, they tend to be on the artistic side, whereas other Surface devices target traditional productivity tasks, but they're still creating content. When Terry Myerson first said, everyone's a creator, it sounded a little goofy, like, oh yeah, sure, but we are, but literally, I mean, we are, and by we, I sort of mean Microsoft's customer base, because traditionally, it has been productivity workers, it's been businesses, it's been doers, as they sometimes call these people. It's a better term. It's kind of a more modern term than like knowledge worker or whatever. It's also a broader term.
Yeah, and I didn't mention this, but the rumor from this week about the Surface Mobile had it having a pen as part of the device, whatever the form factor is, and what else did it have? It had a hinge that could flex 185 degrees,
like
I believe.
Almost like connect two of them or something and have it be like a clip-on courier type thing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that kind of plays into that idea of this being something they could say, well, it's for creators. I mean, there's a pen, right? It's not just for artists, but for anyone who needs a pen or wants to use a pen.
Whatever. Yeah.
Note takers. Yeah.
So I'm sorry. I just, I'm still a little leery of this notion of devices that can do too many things at once. That by nature, depending on how you approach this market, you're going to do one thing pretty well and one thing not so well at all. If you think about a Surface tablet type device, so far these things have been pretty good computers and not so good tablets. An iPad so far has been a really good tablet, and it's okay for content creation depending on what you're doing. Especially if you need to type a lot, it's not necessarily ideal for a lot of people, but both of those companies and both of those products are moving more toward the middle, and maybe at some point they reach this inflection point or whatever where they actually become good. So it's hard to kind of judge this thing. We don't really know what it is, but the thing I like about it is at least they're looking forward and trying to do something new and trying to advance things, not just, hey, Apple made a thing, let's go make a thing like that.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Right. They keep saying that if something has Surface as the branding, it has to have something that differentiates it in some way and that has a value proposition that's not being addressed by its OEMs. So if they stick with that promise, that's where they're going with this, right? Like nobody out there is making a mini tablet with a pen that can use Continuum. I mean, unless you count the HP Elite device, I guess. Mm-hmm. Right. Where it's kind of going in that direction, but I think they're trying to show OEMs the way.
A problem, yeah. Of course, yeah. I mean, these things should always be aspirational, and not just for customers, but for partners, so they can build their own devices, and just for the whole ecosystem. That the more exciting Windows is as a platform, it's one of those virtuous cycle things where developers will get excited about the platform and want to take advantage of it, and users will, and those things will hopefully feed each other.